Good evening, I'm Cynthia Ng. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight. Several areas in Shah Alam and Klang have been hit by flash floods this evening following continuous heavy rain. The Selangor Fire and Rescue Department said that rising waters were also caused by clogged drains. However, no residents had to be evacuated yet, and floodwaters have since receded. The Meteorological Department, Malaysia, previously issued a warning of frequent thunderstorms for states in the west coast of the peninsula. Today, it warned that severe rainfall will also take place in Pahang, Johor, Kelantan and Terengganu. Over 6,000 temporary relief centres have been identified nationwide in anticipation of potential flooding during the northeast monsoon season. In an update on the suspended services at 16 LRT stations, Prasarana CEO Muhammad Azharuddin Matsar says that the LRT operations have shown good signs after test runs and analysis were conducted last night. He reiterated that the decision to suspend services at all the stations was for safety purposes.
On the night of Tuesday, the data indicated that the trains were not able to move automatically. This indicated that there is a problem. So we have taken a look at it and tried to solve it. This means that also what we saw, we could not see the trains on our screens. That is very important for us. The decision we had to make was in the interest of public safety.
Azharuddin added that engineers have performed software updates, swapped modems and replaced power supply components to narrow down the source of signalling loss. The original equipment manufacturer of the train signalling system, Thales Group, will examine the test logs this evening.
Gabungan Rakyat Sabah GRS and Barisan Nasional will continue to work together in the state government after the 15th general election. Sabah Chief Minister Datuk Seri Haji Noor says the pact will be maintained to honour the Rakyat's mandate obtained during the state election in September 2020. In GE15, GRS and BN agreed to split the 25 parliamentary seat allocations in Sabah, with Haji's side taking 13 seats and BN 12. Conflict within the pact arose after Beluran incumbent Datuk Seri Ronald Kiandi decided to contest under the Perikatan Nasional banner after GRS gave up the seat to BN. Kiandi won the seat on a Barisan UMNO ticket in 2018 but quit to join Bersatu in 2019. We are also taking a deep dive into the Beluran seat this evening. Kiandi is a 5-term Beluran MP. He won the seat all the time under Barisan Nasional. So will voters throw their support for him this time around under the Perikatan Nasional banner? Farhana Sheikh has more.
Thank you, Cynthia. So, Beluran is another hot seat to look out for. So, let's have a look at its demographics, electoral history and also election candidates this time around. Now, we have here a rough map of Beluran. It's actually divided into 3 state seats, which is Telupit, Sugut and also Labok. Sabah has already held its state election back in 2020, so it won't be holding another one this time around. But it's interesting to note that for all these state seats back in 2020, they were won by different coalitions or parties. So PN for Labok, BN for Sugut and PBS for Telupit. So it can be hard to tell which coalition or party actually has the upper hand when it comes to parliamentary seat. But we can get a clearer view of it when we look at the racial composition here. So Beluran is definitely a Bumiputra majority seat with more than 95% of Bumiputra voters. Less than 1% of Chinese voters and about 3.7% of others. So we can get sort of a clue of which party they would be more aligned to or what could be some of the voters' aspiration based on this. Now, let's look at the electoral history next. Ronald Kiandi under Barisan Nasional last time won the seat in GE14 with a clear majority, 62.84% of overall voters. It's interesting to note here that ever since the constituency was created in 1995, Beluran voters have never voted against BN. So next in line, we have Warisan at Japar Zairun from Warisan at 28.47, trailing a bit far behind is Sipin Kedandi from Harapan Rakyat, and the rest of the three candidates from Parti Cinta Sabah, PPRS, and also an independent candidate at less than or a bit more than 1%. So those are the electoral history for Beluran in GE14. Now, let's look at the GE15 contestant this time around. Ronald Kiandi, first having won the seat not just last term, but he is also a 5-term incumbent for Beluran. He won the seat last time under UMNO and Barisan Nasional ticket, but he left the coalition in 2018 and subsequently joined Bersatu. So in Sabah, Gabungan Rakyat Sabah GRS, led by Sabah Bersatu and Chief Minister Datuk Seri Haji J. Noor, are in a coalition government with Sabah Barisan Nasional. So under their electoral agreement for G15, GRS has decided to let BN actually to contest under for this seat. However, on nomination day, Ronald had decided to defend the seat under PN, under Perikatan Nasional. So he is up against BN's own Benedict Asmat, who is also in the UMNO Beluran Division Committee, and also Felix Joseph Sang from Pakatan Harapan, Rowena Rasid from Warisan, and also Housing Samsudin from Pejuang. So the main question here would be, how will Ronald's defiance impact the relationship between the coalition parties in the state government right now? That we will soon find out. Back to you, Cynthia.
All right, thanks so much, Farhana, for the breakdown. Let's now bring in political analyst, Associate Professor Lee Kwok Tiong from University Malaysia, Sabah. Good evening, Prof, and thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Good evening, Cynthia.
Now, Hajiji, earlier I mentioned that he said GRS and the Barisan Nasional partnership remains solid despite what has happened. So what do you think, Professor, taking Beluran as an example, Ronald Kiandi taking matters into his own hands and going against Hajiji's wishes, will this hurt the electoral pact at the state level?
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. First of all, actually, for me, it's very important the collaboration between GRS and BN Sabah show the maturity of the leaders in the leaders from the both sides, especially Hajiji, Datuk Seri Panglima Hajiji and Datuk Seri Bu Mukhtar. Okay, it reflects the leadership of both leaders, and it also reflects the dynamic of the Sabah politics. Okay, where they put both of them, both sides decide to put the public interest ahead of the political differences. Okay? Knowing that political stability is important to bring development to Sabah. Okay? In every election, actually, any Malaysians who have desire to contest, actually, they can contest in the elections. Okay, whereby actually this time around we see there are 119 candidates contesting for 25 parliamentary seats in Sabah. Okay, in the last Sabah state election 2020, we saw there are 447 candidates contesting for 73 seats in Sabah. So the democracy system practiced in Malaysia, especially after the amendment of paragraph B, Article 47 Federal Constitutions, okay, has reduced the eligibility of the candidate from 21 to 18 years old, which means actually in Malaysia now, anyone who are 18 years old are entitled to contest in elections.
Right, Professor, I do understand that this is not something that is unique to GE15. We had seen clashes quite a fair bit in the last general election, but I think this time around the interest is we are seeing not just Ronald Kiandi in Sabah, particular, former Barisan Nasional members and existing Bersatu members contesting as independent candidates in several other seats, so setting up clashes. I think what we're trying to get at is, Professor, how are voters taking this kind of clashes that's taking place in what is seemingly a pact between GRS and BN? Is that fraying?
Okay, thank you. Actually, we should look at the voting or voting pattern or voting behavior, which for me are influenced by three main factors. Number one is a candidate. Number two, the party or the party political coalitions, and number three is the issue. Okay, when talking about candidate, actually, I strongly believe that voter will look at a candidate education background, and voter will look at gender will become one of the what they call it, the candidate gender will become one of the issue also. In the urban area, we're talking about this modern society, we're talking about this equal opportunity, feminism. I believe that gender won't become an issue. But in the rural or interior area where men are still more dominant, I believe this gender will become an issue.
All right.
Okay?
So
when we talk...
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, okay. When we talk about this political party, as you know that Sabah, Sarawak, now we are we are playing this local party sentiments, okay, to win, attract more vote, and also when talk about this current issue, MS63 is a very hot topic in Sabah, in Sarawak, and in Sabah we can see recently we have this Sabah sentiment.
All right. So I think what you're trying to say here, the personality factor versus the political party support and loyalty. Just one question before I let you go, Professor. You know, with Warisan and Pakatan Harapan no longer working together compared to the previous general election, will this guarantee a Barisan Nasional GRS victory in GE15?
Okay, the answer for me actually is yes and no. Okay, not necessarily because I believe that some of the voter will vote based on the candidate. But of course, when Warisan are no longer working together with PH, the vote has been split. But again, one thing is very important. Due to the automatic registration, we saw a tremendous increase of the voter in Sabah. Okay, Belurang itself alone has increased from 28,509 voter to 44,413 voter. Okay, and which means actually increased 35.8%. So I really believe that, especially when it comes to this, again, come to this 18 to 20 years old voter, okay, even though there are only 3,016 of them in Belurang, the first time voter, I believe they'll become the kingmaker in this coming election.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor, for your insights. It's a pleasure to have you here with us on AWANI tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
Private employers are not allowed to impose any penalty on workers for being absent from work when they go out to vote this November 19th. Human Resource Minister Datuk Sri M. Saravanan said employers are also not allowed to deduct employees' salary.
Action, he said, can be taken against employers who refuse to comply with the instruction. In a statement, he said that the employers were bound by subsection 25 in bracket 1 of the Election Offences Act 1954 to do so. Employers who do not comply could be charged and fined 5,000 ringgit or jailed for 1 year if found guilty. Saravanan said time off should also be granted to employees who are outstation voters and would need to return to their hometowns to vote. For employees who need more than 1 day to travel to the polling station, they can take annual leave.
Penang today declared a special holiday on November 18th to encourage people to vote in GE15, becoming the third state in the country to have made such a move. Selangor and Negeri Sembilan had also declared a public holiday, saying this would help voters to fulfill their responsibilities in the polls. All three states are under Pakatan Harapan rule. Now, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob previously said that an announcement would be made on whether a public holiday would be declared nationwide on the eve of the election. There are no plans for DAP to make it mandatory for its GE15 candidates to declare their assets. According to DAP Secretary General Anthony Loke, the party's candidates need only to do so when they are appointed to the cabinet.
Loke said that DAP has no policy requiring candidates to declare assets. The majority of the 72 PKR candidates have declared their assets as the party's requirement to contest in the GE15. Meanwhile, PAS also does not intend to have its candidates to declare their assets ahead of GE15. Its Vice President, Dato' Amar Nik Abdullah, said it would be embarrassing for PAS candidates to do so, as most of them are not wealthy, adding that assets declarations normally involve civil servants.
As GE15 campaigning hits fever pitch, DAP continues to be painted as the bad guy by its political rivals. What will it take to counter this narrative? Tonight on Consider This, we speak to DAP Secretary General Anthony Loke about walking the talk in being truly multiracial party. Before we leave you tonight, we want to hear your thoughts on GE15. Here is the question of the day. We would like to know, have the GE candidates for your constituency declared their assets? Share with us your answers. All you have to do is scan the QR code on the screen that is displayed right now. The results of these questionnaires will be revealed daily. That's all for tonight. My name is Cynthia Ng. Thank you so much for watching.